Okay, evening, folks. Welcome back to the channel. We haven't done a vid for a long time on the channel, but that's how modeling goes. You know, sometimes you have quite a lengthy break and then you get back into it. But here we are. So we're gonna try and get something done. And what I'm going to do is I've been doing a bit of research on figures and etc. And I've got my own style that I do figures my own way, I should say. I mustn't say it's a style because I'm not a master figure builder or painter by a long stroke of the chalk. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just a figure that I've been working on, and I've been trying to improve my figures. And I think figure work's all about doing it, taking your time and doing it slowly, and trying to get as much authenticity as you can. The big thing with figures is to keep them clean. You've got to try and get all the flash off. Even if you're working with old figures, I like working with the older figures. I must admit, I enjoy the older figures. Some figures, and I think I've mentioned before on the channel, those of you that have watched a few of my vids on the Wardroom, that I like the TriStar figures. They're actually very, very nice. And I bought a few mini craft figures, not that I'm downing any brand, I'm just mentioning it for what it's worth. And I just found their figures not to be, as opposed to the money that you paying out for these figures, I expected a bit more. Let's put it that way. So, and you understand this YouTube channel, the War Room, it's very much a budget modeling channel. So we try and do the best we can on the least little bit of money. Anyway. So some would term that as being cheapskate. And look, I know there's fantastic figures out there. You've got all those fancy brands like Alpine, and there's a couple more that come out of the Ukraine and things like that. But I tell you what, I must admit, they are fantastic, but a little bit above my pay grade. And I have, my son actually bought me one or two those resin figures, and I must admit they are very nice, but I'll keep that for when I'm a little bit better. So what I've done, I picked up an RCM figure set. And what I've done is I'm doing that diorama of mine of General Kussen, the incident at the Wolfies and the Utrecht junction in Holland during the Arnhem Market Garden operation. And this is and part of that diorama is his staff car, which is 11 CV Citroen. So anyway, and I found an RCM figure. I had a figure set that I picked up from a garage sale a couple of years ago, and I must admit, very, very impressed with RCM. Never done an RCM kit as such, but I must admit the detail is fantastic. And what I've since acquired, it was donated to me, is one of these. And I've always wanted one, an optimizer. I know they're old, but I tell you what, even this, and it's actually quite fantastic. I always wanted one. I used to see them in the magazines when I was a young modeler, and I used to see them in the American magazines, and we used to get our hands on these magazines, and I used to see this optimizer, and I think, geez, I want one of those. And of course, we used to look at them, and they used to be $5 or $6, whatever, and you think, oh, that's hundreds of rand. So I never, and a very good friend of mine, funny enough, bumped into him one day, and he's on my War Room Facebook group, and he said, "Man, Kent, I've got one of those things lying around. You're welcome to it." And he gave it to me, and I must admit, I'm actually quite enjoyed. So, listen, I drooled over one of those when I was about 13 or 14, and 40 odd years later, or maybe longer, I've got one. So you never know in modeling. Anyway, let's get back to what I wanted to show you. I'm going to put some light on here. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to get the light down here, and then we're trying something different. I'm using my cell phone video, so I'm going to get it down like this, and let's hope you can see some stuff here. Okay, and this is the RCM figure. I hope it's focusing and you guys can see. And I must admit, I'm quite impressed with the detail that's come out, and I'm not quite finished with Herkusen yet, but I will do all the shading and everything. I'm hoping that you guys can see on the video. So we'll finish him off shortly. I'm going to sand the filler there and get his hat and everything on. What I've done is now I've also managed to source a figure I wanted a driver, so I had a Tamiya kit, a Tamiya kit of a Kubelwagen, and the driver had a nice. His pose is quite nice with his leg halfway out the car, so there's quite nice detail on this old Tamiya kit. So this is still on the sprue. I've cut off the legs I wanted to show you, and I've taken one of the head from, I'm going to use the head from the RCM kit where Kusun came from, and it's actually quite a nice head. So now, folk, what I do is with figures, and I find it quite important, is that let me just get another pointer here. This one's better. There we go. And what I find with what I like to do with the figures, if you look carefully on here, you'll see there's a slight edge, and that's where it's molded, and it goes up onto there. Now that you must clean off, folks. That edge there, you clean off with fine sandpaper, and you clean that edge off there too. There where you're going to join, you clean that edge off. Not too much that you lose the detail, but you got to clean it off. And if you look along the boot here, you'll see the boot has got a seam that goes down there. Okay, that's not natural. That you must clean off. There's laces. You've got to try and keep the detail. And then, of course, you got the buckle. Now, look here. There you've got the molding seam running up there. If you guys can see, I'm just pointing it out there. And along that, you must all clean up. Because once you start painting... And if you're like me, you want it to be authentic. You want it to be as realistic as possible. And yeah, the guys out there say, oh, but I do modeling for fun. So good luck to them. I mean, they're more than welcome to carry on like that. But I like it to be as correct and historically as possible. So if you strive with those little details, it's all, when it comes to modeling, it's all in the details. So get that all cleaned up, folks. I sit with a nice little sharp blade and I take my time. That's why I take my time with modeling. I'm not going to sit and actually give you a video on how I do it. I mean, it's quite simple. Each one, I'm just showing you the different where you can sand it off. I mean, I've got different kinds of sandpaper. I've got lots. I keep them all cut up in here, and I've got right down to 2000 grit, 1200 grit. I've got 400. I've got 800 grit. So I use different. And even though I like to use a lot of water paper, so I wet it a bit, and it sands much finer, because you don't want to create. When you are cleaning up here, you don't want to create a burr on here and make that furry, because then you're going to lose the detail of the trousers or whatever the case may be. Like your pocket, you don't want to sand that completely away. You just want to clean that edge there, so that when you put his, when you get his torso together, it fits in a nice edge. And you see there where the cut off, where you've cut it off over there, you must also clean that off very nicely. And then another thing what I do is, folks, and a lot of guys poo-poo this idea, but what I do is that I wash the figure before I paint it. I wash it before I even glue it. So when I cut it off like that, okay, I might glue that together and glue his arms, and depending how I do it, then I'll wash it in a little bit of warm soapy water, and I'll let it dry overnight before I even start painting. So what I'm going to start with now, I'm going to start cleaning up, cutting off, getting it all ready, sanding it up, and then maybe glue the legs together tonight, and we'll see how we go. And then clean it, and then maybe tomorrow I'll start painting his driver. So that's what I do with figures. And let me get you back up here. And that's how I go about figures, and that's what I do with figures. So it's actually... it's a nice journey. Figure painting can be very interesting, and you can get quite engrossed with figures. And as much as the kits are nice to do, the figures, if you really get down to taking your time with your figures and using your paints. And another thing is, talking about paints, I use Humbrol, as many of you know. I like Humbrol. I love my Humbrol, and I use Humbrol enamels. And if you're using enamels, I'm not too clued up on acrylics or water-based paints. All my Humbrol's are all solvent, so it's all thinner-based. If you're using enamels, just make sure that you allow them to dry properly. They've got to dry properly, folks, because if they don't dry properly, you're going to have a problem with your painting. They, especially Humbrol, I love them. I like working with them. But if you paint thin, your paint must, when you do figures, extremely thin paint. I cannot emphasize that. Your paint must be super, super thin. So you put a thin layer on your face or on your jacket or your uniform, and you think to yourself, geez, it looks a little bit insipid. That's fine. Leave it like that. Let it dry, and then you just do another layer. Because the moment you put thick paint on, bearing in mind we're working in miniature, folk. So you're in 35th scale. So you're taking it 35 times down from the original full size reality. So yes, somebody might say, there was a thing I read on Facebook the other day, the guy was saying, oh, talk about the invasion, it's been the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and somebody says, oh, the guy's so pedantic about his invasion stripes, and look how there's proof that they hand painted it on. Yeah, fine. In real life, you probably find the ground crew hand painted it on. But bearing in mind, you take and hand paint it and slop it on in 72nd scale or 48 scale, whatever, it's going to look terrible. So, do it, mask it nicely, and do the spraying, or even hand paint it, but paint it in thin paint. So, bearing in mind, we are operating in miniature. Anyway, some people say I'm a bit pedantic about it, but the thinner your paint, the better it is. Rather paint in layers and let it dry. And I often find on Facebook, and I don't comment too much, and I watch guys, and you find a lot of modelers I see on, if you look on social media, they rush and they just want to finish, present the thing so that everybody can give them a thumbs up or whatever. Anyway, different folks for different strokes for different folks, I say. Anyway, folks, I just want to give you a little bit of heads up with figures, and I'm going to do a few more videos as I go along, show you how I do them. If it can help you, it can help you. If you want to pass a comment, and if you haven't liked the channel, please like and subscribe. You're welcome to comment, you're welcome to criticize, or whatever the case may be. I don't have a problem. But anyway, will be more videos coming. I'm sorry it's been such a long hiatus, as they call it, or sabbatical. But we're back, and we're going to do some work. And then also I'm going to do a video on the 11 CV, and we'll see how that goes. Anyway, you folks stay safe out there. Keep warm. We've got winter out here in South Africa, in little old Ganubi, and we'll catch you on the next video. Cheers.